Okay. Hello, I am here with Patrick Welch, who has come in today to talk about self-care in the military. Now, Patrick, what has been your experience in seeing how people who work in the military manage their self-care?
Well, unfortunately, it has not been real good. I think the military training that we go through, starting in boot camp, where you're taught to overcome, adapt, persevere, is not conducive to people looking and seeking help for mental health issues. So therefore, during their military service, when they've encountered problems, and particularly after, once they become veterans, it is not normal for a lot of veterans to acknowledge the fact that, you know, I saw or did some things, and I think I need to go talk to someone about it.
And what challenges exist within the military regarding the self-care?
Well, the first thing that exists within the military is the stigma that is still associated with mental health care. The Department of Defense will issue press releases ad nauseum on how there is no stigma associated in the military with mental health care. However, in practicality, you can talk to any service member who may have experienced some issues, requested help through their chain of command, and has been told to shut up and just do your job. On the other hand, again, unwritten rules, it also affects promotional capabilities. In the military, you have two opportunities for promotion on any kind of a regular basis. When you come up for your promotion boards, if the people on that board read in your personnel file that you are undergoing mental health care, they will not ever come out and say that that is a reason you didn't get a promotion, but it will weigh on their decision to grant you promotion. If your second round of promotion comes up and you are still seeking and under care, more than likely you will not get promoted again. And in the military, once you've been passed over the second time for promotion, you're asked to resign. So someone could have 12 or 14 or more years in the military, not get that opportunity for a second promotion board, and they then must resign from the military. So that stigma exists within the promotional side of it. There is then also the stigma of your fellow service members, because you've got my back, I've got your back. If all of a sudden I'm aware of the fact that you may have some hesitancies to respond in a life and death situation, then it may do harm in terms of my ability to accept you and what you're going to do for me, and then also cause morale issues within a unit.
Now, what consequences have you seen for the people who are not successful?
Well, in the military, it leads to suicides a great deal. If there are service members out there that have been actively seeking some help and are running into issues within the chain of command, there are many, many suicides that are taking place in the military. In fact, in 2013, they're at an all-time high of military suicides. There are more people in the military committing suicides than there are dying in combat, and the veteran population right now is at 22 suicides a day.
Wow, thank you. And in your own successful practice, what has worked for you in terms of self-care?
Well, for me personally, it began with acknowledging the fact that I had some issues. As a Vietnam veteran, when I came back in 1965 after I was wounded, I spent the next 40 years in denial. It was always, I was absolutely fine, and it was the rest of you folks that were the problem, not me. The first 12 years I was back, I had a counselor named Dr. Johnny Walker Black. If any of you have ever heard, it's a very fine Scotch. And Dr. Black counseled me every night that I was just fine. I chose the alcohol route because at that time the VA was pumping my fellow vets full of drugs in a way to calm them down or to medicate them so they didn't have issues. They couldn't function in society, they couldn't hold a job, They couldn't go to school, divorces were rampant, non-relationships with their children. So I chose alcohol because I felt I could control alcohol more than I could control the drugs that the VA was prescribing. Once I acknowledged that issue, things began to change, and in a non-scientific way of looking at things, my grandchildren used to call me Grumpy Grandpa. And once I started getting some treatment, started getting some medication to help me balance my life, my grandchildren no longer call me Grumpy Grandpa. So it's made a significant change, not only in how I act towards people, but also how I act towards my grandchildren and my family. So the acknowledgement of the fact that I had it, the fact that I decided finally to go seek some help, was a big part of it.
Great, thank you. And lastly, what are your best tips and strategies for successful self-care in the military?
Well, first of all, it is a personal thing. There is no one prescription that you can say everybody should follow such a path. I think the first thing is that that military person, that veteran, has to acknowledge that they have something that's troubling them. Once they acknowledge it, then there's a multitude of resources that they can go to through the Department of Defense, through the Veterans Administration, through private organizations such as the Institute on Trauma and Trauma-Informed Care, where we are trying to reach out, help eliminate this stigma toward mental health issues, and making people understand that it's a normal reaction to traumatic events. It does not mean you're crazy. You know, there was a stigma for years and years, PTSD meant you're crazy. You know, that in some circles is still the case. So, and a support system, either a family support system, a veteran support system, or some other area where they could sit with other people who've encountered similar experiences and can guide them and help them along the path to making them understand that it's not just them and that the world is not against them and they've got an outlet to help get some of these issues out of them.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
My
I
pleasure.
really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.